It's Thursday, January 8th. This is CTV at 6. Here's what's making news tonight. A nurse pens a scathing letter about conditions in one hospital. A midday fire at Scotiabank Centre sparks an evacuation in downtown Halifax.
And milder temperatures to close out the week, but the weekend may finish with a wintry mix.
Live from our Maritime's News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Todd Battis.
Good evening. A registered nurse has leveled harsh criticism at the New Brunswick government. She says the treatment her grandmother received while at a Fredericton hospital was not health care, but harm. CTV's Laura Brown has more.
For over a year now, the Chalmers Hospital Emergency Department has been so full that a makeshift treatment unit is handling the overflow. But the unit, 13 beds, was created in the former ambulance bay, essentially a garage. In an open letter to Premier Susan Holt posted on social media, Katarina Leckborg describes her 88-year-old grandmother's experience being treated in that unit. There is no bathroom, no running water, no sink to wash hands. She eats inches from the commode she must use to relieve herself. There is no privacy, a tattered curtain with holes, no doors. The lights are relentless, on all day and all night. She writes that the unit is not a solution, but concealment. The Premier and Health Minister agree.
When you look at that care in a garage, it's not ideal.
But they both say right now it's the only option.
The alternative is no care right now. If that MASH unit hadn't been transitioned by Horizon, then people would be outside in the parking lot. It's pretty hard to say that it's better than nothing because it is terrible.
Holt says she's been discussing the situation with Leckborg through texts and phone calls. Horizon Health CEO says the very existence of this unit reflects the severe strain the system is under. Today, 121 patients at the Chalmers are waiting for a long-term care placement. The Minister of Health says he's working on that.
We have people that are under the care of the public trustee. We're asking the public trustee to help us get people from a hospital ALC status to a nursing home.
Leckborg ended her letter stating, "Healthcare is governed by a fundamental duty, do no harm. What is happening now is harm. This is not care, it is systemic failure." CTV has reached out to Leckborg but is yet to hear back. Laura Brown, CTV News, Fredericton.
In tonight's CTV Web poll, we're asking, should hospitals use unconventional spaces to deal with that overcrowding? And the options are yes, if it ensures people have access to care; no, that is not acceptable; or only as a last resort. And you can vote at ctvnewsatlantic.ca. Now, the Premier and Health Minister made those comments in Laura's story while at the launch of the province's first Alzheimer's and dementia strategy. The aim is to diagnose people faster and to give them access to immediate support, with the hope they can stay in their homes and communities for as long as possible. About 60 to 70% of patients waiting in hospital for long-term care suffer from dementia or Alzheimer's.
They're there because the person who's caring for them can no longer provide that care at home. They are stressed, they are tired, they didn't have resources to support them. So giving them the resources that they need in community, letting them know how to manage the disease as well as possible for as long as possible at home.
About 12,000 people in the province suffer from the conditions. $1 million is being spent to roll out the plan. There was a lot of action in downtown Halifax this afternoon. Fire broke out at the Scotiabank Centre, prompting the evacuation of the arena and streets to be closed off. CTV's Jesse Thomas is in downtown Halifax with the Scotiabank building behind him. He's got some details into what happened, Jesse.
Hey, Todd. Yeah, that's right. The building was evacuated this afternoon. Just after 12:30 or so, fire crews arrived to a fire outside the building on the roof. I don't know if you can see it behind me here, but it's an area above the mezzanine, they're calling it, and it's usually where the digital graphics board, the information board, usually sits. There was some construction work happening in the morning, some welding work on the supports that hoist and hold up the digital sign, which isn't there right now, but fire crews began to hit the fire with hoses from the ground, but they were able to put the flames out quickly with help from aerial support. A bucket truck came in Fire crews were also able to get to the roof from inside the building, and they made quick work of the fire. Now, District Fire Chief Brad Connors says construction crews have been doing some work on the roof earlier in the day, but the workers weren't on site when fire arrived. When it broke out anyways, they were out on lunch.
Crews arrived very quickly on scene, confirmed that we had a fire on the mezzanine roof. Crews went into action right away, stretching lines. They got inside, started attacking the fire. We got the fire under control within, a minute of arrival. And then we spent some more time just checking for extension, make sure the fire didn't get inside the structure.
Now, Fire Chief Connors there said the fire did get into the exterior wall, but damage inside was held at minimal. The arena, however, was evacuated as a precaution, and Events East, who run the venue, says no one was injured and the building is now being assessed for damage. And we can update and say that there was one booking inside the arena today that had to be canceled. That's because the investigation into the cause of the fire and the extent of the damage continues, and Events East told me just before now that work will go throughout the evening, so we will get an update on the situation in the morning. But there's a lot of hockey fans that will be paying close attention because there's two big events this weekend, Todd. The Mooseheads have a game here Saturday night, but the Professional Women's Hockey League are also holding a game here between Ottawa and Boston on Sunday afternoon. So there's a lot of hockey fans obviously are wondering if they can get into the building this weekend. Mind you, in my discussions with District Chief Connors, he did stress that the fire caused minimal damage. So we'll see what happens tomorrow morning in terms of an update, Todd.
Okay, that's certainly some good news there. CTV's Jesse Thomas in downtown Halifax for us tonight. Thank you, Jesse. Police have identified the breed of dogs that attacked and killed 13-year-old Drew Nickerson on the weekend. A horrific and uncommon incident. CTV's Hafsa Arf spoke with the dog handler.
It's a tragedy that's both heartbreaking and shocking. One that dog trainers insist rarely happens without warning signs.
The child going by or other people going by repeatedly, the dogs bark, they're not corrected for the barking, and then it escalates. 13-year-old
Drew Nickerson was riding his bicycle when he was attacked by two cane corsos and a Rottweiler. Mounties confirm one of the dog owners arrived at the scene and drove Drew to the hospital. He died days later.
They got onto the roadway, so I can't get into whether they were tied or kenneled or any other types of restraints. All I can say at this time, and I'm sure you can appreciate, we're still, drilling down on the details.
Longtime dog trainer Bob Ottenbright insists the breeds can be safe family pets, but only if properly trained and socialized.
They're super dogs, but if they're not trained and not socialized, there's a factor where they're outside influences in their environment as threats.
Nova Scotia's Department of Municipal Affairs says enforcement of animal bylaws are set by municipalities. The municipality of the District of Shelburne says it's waiting for answers but promises to act. They say they haven't received past complaints about the dogs involved, only one unrelated off-leash report in the broader area, and that was handled by a bylaw officer. In a statement, Warden Penny Smith says, following the conclusion of the investigation, we will review our current animal control bylaw and enforcement approach to determine whether improvements are needed. In the meantime, dog trainers are emphasizing training, calling the safest backyard one where dogs are never assumed to behave just because they're loved.
You cannot stop a strong dog, even a smaller dog, when they're intent on biting you. They can still do a lot of damage.
RCMP say it's too early to comment on whether any charges will be laid. They emphasize they're gathering all the facts, statements, and evidence before making any decisions. And also, Todd, one fundraising campaign for the family has already brought in nearly $130,000. Todd?
All right, Hafsa in the news center with us this evening. There's a live look at downtown Moncton, where it's currently -1 degree. Let's get our first look at the weather. We bring in CTV meteorologist Kalen Mitchell. We had some schools that were closed around the region today.
Yeah, I'm guessing slick road conditions might have been the cause in some areas, as we had that mix of weather that came through yesterday, and then temperatures at night that fell back down to and below the freezing mark. Could have made certainly for some icy spots. Here's a couple reports from that weather system that made its way through. Now, most of the snow was restricted to the range around a few to several millimeters. This was centimeters, sorry. This was by far not the biggest snow event that we have had so far this season. It was more slick conditions that were the concern with it, especially where freezing rain mixed in with that snow, including in around the Moncton area, where the Moncton airport reported about 4 hours in total of some freezing rain. Snowfall reports from a few areas of Pictou County came in a little bit higher, including around the New Glasgow area, close to 10 centimeters, and a little bit further away from the coastline of the Northumberland Strait in Pictou County, so towards the interior of that county, there might even been some locally higher snowfall amounts. One gust at St. Joseph, Des Moines, Inverness County in Cape Breton at 108 kilometers per hour. And there was some heavy rain that came through central areas of Nova Scotia, including in around the Halifax area. One report from Yankeetown coming in with 58 millimeters of rain. Slightly milder temperatures. Backrow Point reporting a high temperature yesterday of near 5 degrees. Now, temperatures for this evening are mostly in the range of a few degrees below to a few degrees above the freezing mark. And we are headed into a chilly January night for the region. Not a lot of precipitation expected, though. Maybe still a late chance of some flurries, low chance of some light flurries around Prince Edward Island and Cape Breton this evening. Cloud outlook for tonight is for partly cloudy skies. So you may be looking for gaps or breaks in that cloud if you were going to do some night sky viewing. It is a waning gibbous moon, 69% illuminated tonight, rising above the eastern horizon after midnight. But a little bit earlier, after sunset, you can spot Jupiter and the constellation Gemini above the eastern horizon. There is a minor G1 geomagnetic storm forecast for the overnight hours, but the aurora is unlikely to be observed in the Maritimes. No pass from the International Space Station until January 10th, Todd.
All right. Thank you, Kellen. We'll see you for the full forecast a little later. 4 people have been arrested after a gun was fired in Sydney this morning. And this happened in a parking lot around 4:30. Witnesses saw a person firing a shot at 2 people who were running towards Welton Street. Police arrested 3 people and seized a firearm inside a vehicle at the scene. A second vehicle fled. The driver was later arrested at home on Lincoln Road. There were no injuries. Police say the individuals are known to each other. A 33-year-old man is facing a total of 9 charges following a disturbance at Scotia Square in Halifax last night. Halifax police say they responded to a disturbance at the food court at Scotia Square around supper time. They say a man was acting aggressively, made threats, and pushed security guards. 33-year-old Jodell Stunton appeared in court today to face 9 charges, including 2 counts each of assault and assault with a weapon. The trial of a Moncton man accused of killing an elderly Dieppe couple resumed this morning. CTV's Derek Haggett was in court and has the details.
Day 2 of the Jansen Baker double murder trial was a brief one. The judge dismissed the jury this morning, saying a legal issue had come up before the trial was set to resume, and he adjourned the matter for the day. The 29-year-old Baker has pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 74-year-old Rose-Marie Saunier and her husband, 78-year-old Bernard Saunier. The Sauniers were shot and killed in their Dieppe home in September of 2019. The Crown prosecution says a witness will testify that Baker admitted breaking into the home looking for Silvio Saunier, son of Bernard and Rose-Marie, and instead shot the couple in the head. The first witness called on Tuesday was a family friend and someone close to Silvio. Nadine Vosberg testified that she and Silvio arrived at the home around noon the day of the killings. She noticed Bernard's walker in the kitchen, which she thought was odd. Vosberg testified she found both of the bodies when she entered Rose-Marie's bedroom, saying there was blood all over the bed. She then shouted out to Silvio, saying, "Your parents are dead. We need to call the police." The two then quickly exited the home and called the RCMP. Silvio Saunier died 4 years later, but his death is not considered suspicious. The judge said the jury would have a long weekend and the trial is scheduled to resume on Monday. Derek Haggett, CTV News, Moncton.
On our website right now, we have details of a Nova Scotia man accused of pretending to be an RCMP officer and stealing a dump truck. You can see the details at ctvnewsatlantic.ca. Home prices in Nova Scotia have taken an almost double-digit leap in the past year. But as CTV's Callum Smith reports, those in the industry predict growth will slow, giving some first-time home buyers a chance to get in.
End goal is definitely to buy a house, and I just don't see that happening anytime soon.
That's the feeling of many Maritimers with a housing market that's continued to see price increases. According to the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors, the average home price in December jumped 8.6% compared to the same time last year, now totaling more than $479,000.
This is now the 400 to 500. Those are the same homes that we're looking at now that 10 years ago would have been 289 to 350.
Home sales across the province were down 2.1% in December, and new listings were down 4.5%.
The market has seen a drastic shift where buyers are having a hand in the market. It's hard for the sellers to accept that fact at this point because they are, used to getting more than what they are asking. Whereas buyers at this point are like, no, the market is shifting, so we are not going to pay over what you're asking.
And the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors says interest rates make it a good time for buyers to enter the market, but the overall price point daunting to those who hope to one day call home ownership a reality.
How will I ever afford that? How will I ever save up for that?
According to the association, the federal-provincial partnership for mass development and promised affordable homes at Shannon Park is a great step and hopes governments will put more emphasis on rent-to-own programs. But in the meantime, the prediction is slowed price growth.
I would say it's going to be very stable moving forward in 2026 and 2027.
I don't know that we're peaking at this time. I think that the home pricing right now, I don't think it can rise significantly over the next couple of years. I think that we are going to see the home pricing kind of steady out here.
Callum Smith, CTV News, Halifax.
We'll talk about the economy a little later in our interview segment. We're going to take our first break now. Kayla Mitchell looks towards the weekend and the full forecast. Katie is here with entertainment. But first, could Venezuelan oil impact the industry here?
We don't have the luxury anymore to say, well, gee whiz, should we not develop our resources? Should we build another pipeline?
What could American involvement in South America mean for gas production and prices here? We'll talk about that next.
Get the Maritime's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
This country's oil industry is keeping a very close eye on the developing situation in Venezuela, and that includes those in the Maritimes. With more on what the impacts could be here, here's CTV's Avery McRae.
In St. John's backyard sits the country's largest oil refinery, a key piece of Canadian infrastructure that could play a vital role in the nation's future.
We don't have the luxury anymore to say, well, gee whiz, should we not develop our resources? Should we build another pipeline? I think our degrees of freedom, our choice set, has diminished enormously.
The reason is because of U.S. President Donald Trump's plans to take control of Venezuela's oil industry. The country boasts the largest oil reserves on the planet, but the infrastructure to exploit the resource needs to be done. Some experts predict that will take years, but Carleton business professor Ian Lee thinks otherwise.
I'm not saying it's going to be imminent in the next 30 days either. But I think that you could see oil flowing over across the Gulf of Mexico to Louisiana in a year's time.
That would mean less U.S. demand for Canadian oil, which is where Canada sent nearly 90% of its product to last year.
We're certainly talking with our colleagues out west, for whom this is extremely concerning, and everybody is doing their kind of analysis of what are the potential impacts of this.
About a third of Canada's GDP comes from exports, meaning new markets will have to be found outside of the U.S. One of them is located on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Lee says Europe still has a desperate need for oil, gas, and LNG. And with a little work, St. John could be a central player in all three.
The German chancellor was here only 2 summers ago, practically begging then Prime Minister Trudeau for LNG exports. Because energy is so essential in a modern economy that the demand for LNG and oil is not diminishing.
Avery McRae, CTV News, St. John.
It's going to be a chilly start to tomorrow, but things will warm up throughout the day. Callum Mitchell has the details of the full maritime forecast. We'll have those right after the break. Well, so some sun did break through this afternoon. over the coast. That's Lawrencetown area in Nova Scotia.
That's always a great view. I like that. Little peak of blue sky there in the background. Winds were a little bit breezy today, but not too bad. And of course, weather conditions fairly on the calmer side compared to yesterday.
Sure, so it would have been a nice day to go for a walk on the beach.
Yeah, it absolutely could have been. And we actually have a couple nice days ahead of us for going out, maybe doing a little bit of January walking, including tomorrow. A little bit of a mix comes through Friday night. It's going to be rain showers for most of the Maritimes. And then Saturday during the day looks very nice. And then Sunday we've got a returning wintry mix of weather. Yeah. Let's take a look at what's going on as far as weather conditions go across the country. And looking out west, we've got some mild temperatures around the south coast of BC. Victoria right now sitting at 8 degrees. Prince George sitting at -3. It is colder at Fort St. John, seeing some sunshine at -22. Fort McMurray at -17. Saskatoon right now, sunshine at -13, and it's -8 at Winnipeg. In Ontario, 0 at Thunder Bay and Sudbury, 4 degrees at Toronto, and 2 at Ottawa and Montreal. 0 at Quebec City in the Maritimes, 1 at Fredericton, -1 at Halifax and Charlottetown, and 1 at St. John's. I'm reporting a little bit of wet weather. Happy Valley, Goose Bay right now sitting at -7. Same thing goes for Labrador City. On our forecast timeline for cloud cover and precipitation as we make our way through tonight, partly cloudy conditions, maybe a few fog patches, and conditions remain that way into the start of the day on Friday. As we make our way from Friday morning into Friday afternoon, much of the region will see a mix of sun and cloud. Late in the day on Friday, late afternoon hours, there will be a chance of some flurries into the northwest of New Brunswick, and that will turn over to that quick and lighter mix of snow and rain that'll be making its way across the Maritimes Friday evening and Friday night. There is a risk of some patchy light freezing rain within that mix in the northern half of New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island, as well as the Cape Breton Highlands as that moves through. Other areas of Nova Scotia expected to mostly see some lighter rain and some showers overnight and into the early morning hours of Saturday. Winds in the forecast for tomorrow will be out of the southwest, sustained 10 to 20 kilometers per hour with some gusts between 20 and 40. In taking a look at the long-range outlook for the end of the weekend, that's when this next low-pressure system is headed in our direction. And this one looks a little bit similar to the one that worked its way through yesterday, with a mixture of snow, freezing rain, and rain for the Maritimes. Now, the most snow and freezing rain right now for the end of the weekend looks like it'll be for the province of New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island, with greatest risk of freezing rain in Nova Scotia, Cumberland and Colchester counties, so the northern part of the mainland once again, and up in the Cape Breton Highlands, and then mostly rain for the rest of that province. So keep tabs on your weekend forecast, especially as Sunday gets a little bit closer, because that's when that next system is going to be on its way in. Now, low temperatures in the forecast for tonight for many areas of New Brunswick, falling into a range of around -6 to -10, -4 for Grand Manan. Several degrees below zero tonight for Prince Edward Island, and most of the low temperatures for Nova Scotia between 0 and -6. So again, chilly night and chilly start to the day for tomorrow. Temperatures moderate a little bit though heading into the afternoon, with communities in the north of New Brunswick coming up between -2 and +2, and central and southern areas of New Brunswick with high temperatures tomorrow between 2 and 4 degrees. For Prince Edward Island in the forecast, afternoon high temperatures around 0, or in some cases getting up to around +1, including Cavendish and Montague. In Cape Breton, high temperatures near 3 degrees for Sydney, 1 at Baddeck and 1 at Port Hawkesbury. On the north shore of Nova Scotia, near 2 for New Glasgow and Antigonish. And on the eastern shore, the high temperatures between 2 and 4 degrees. Near 2 for Amherst for tomorrow, and for Truro, 3 degrees for the city centers Halifax and Dartmouth, the Annapolis Valley, with high temperatures of around 4 on Friday, and high temperatures in the south shore of Nova Scotia between 2 and 4 degrees. Taking a look at the 7-day outlook for New Brunswick, coming up on Saturday, it's a mix of sun and cloud and high temperatures in the low to mid single digits, and then gets chillier on Sunday, which is why that next weather system arriving looks like it's mostly going to be a mixture of snow and freezing rain. Flurries follow in behind it for Monday, then it's a mix of sun and cloud on Tuesday of next week, a mixture of showers and flurries possible on Wednesday, and then seasonably cold on Thursday with daytime high temperatures a few to several degrees below the freezing mark. For Nova Scotia in the outlook coming up on Saturday morning, there's still a chance of a few lingering showers, and then snow turning over to rain on Sunday with the risk of freezing rain, again, Cumberland and Colchester counties. Flurries in the forecast for Monday, a mix of sun and cloud on Tuesday, then increasing cloudiness on Wednesday of next week, followed by flurries on Thursday. And for Prince Edward Island, coming up on Saturday, a few showers may need to wrap up first thing in the morning. The rest of the day, though, very fair. A wintry mix of weather coming in on Sunday. Flurries in the forecast for Monday. It's followed by a mix of sun and cloud on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, and flurries expected next Thursday. Todd.
Okay, we will see you for the wake-up weather a little later. What shape will the economy take this year? We'll ask the author of a new report. And we have a popular singer in the Maritimes on the scene.
Hey folks, I'm Corey Tetford, and I get to talk to Katie about music. Coming up.
Okay, so coming up tomorrow, another shot at $100,000 with Virgin Radio's $100,000 to Destroy Your Dad.
Those keywords starting at 7 a.m.
And get a chance to win a $250 gift card to St. Louis Bar and Grill.
Welcome back. Slumping productivity, job losses, tariffs. There is plenty of concern about Canada's economy as we head into 2026, but is there room for some optimism? Deloitte Canada has released its winter outlook for the economy. Joining us tonight with the results, Dawn Desjardins. She's been on the show before, chief economist with Deloitte. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Do you see a growing or weakening economy for Canada?
Well, on balance, it'll be a little softer than it was in 2025. But I think when we think about how it's going to play out, we're anticipating slow growth to start the year, so not a lot of good news there. But as we go through the middle part of this year, we're going to have that review of our Canada-US-Mexico trade agreement, and we think that review will yield sufficient results that are positive for Canada, meaning we'll retain most of our goods going south of the border tariff-free, that this will restore business confidence. And once that happens, we expect to see some improving momentum in our economy.
What gives you optimism about the CUSMA negotiations? Because there's a lot of folks who don't share your position on that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think it is increasingly clear that U.S. businesses are relying on Canadian exports. And because of that, we do feel that that is going to be persuasive enough for the administration to actually proceed with this agreement that we have. Now, will the agreement look exactly the way it looks today? I would think not. There are irritants that the U.S. administration points to all the time, so there could be some changes. But I think in the main, and this is what we're really expecting, is that we will continue to have access to that U.S. market.
Well, that would certainly be good. There was lots of talk last year about recession. Have we put that term to bed for the coming year?
We have. Now, there's a few things that have changed, I think, that also support economic growth. One of them being that we have lower interest rates than we've had. And we do think that those lower interest rates will help. They'll help households who are going to have to renegotiate their mortgages. Remember, a lot of the mortgages that were 5-year mortgages struck in 2021.
Yeah.
Yes, they're coming due, and they were at really low rates. But now that differential is not nearly as great as when we had the 5% overnight rate. So we think that's going to be constructive.
I know you look at the provinces. Let's break it down a bit and look at the Maritimes. As a region, how do we look?
Well, I would say a little bit slower than what we saw in 2025, and that's just in keeping, right, with the rest of the country. Again, that changes we've seen to our immigration policy, that population growth that were really giving us a lift and helping us, well, that's not going to be there this year. So to the extent that that's having an impact, it's going to be to a slower growth. I think when we think about other things, though, that we are seeing investment activity in many different projects, and we're hearing about investments that potentially are in the hopper. I think these are going to be, offsetting some of that softening we're seeing in terms of the consumer side.
So are you talking about the big projects, those so-called national projects like the Sisson Mine in New Brunswick or Wind West in Nova Scotia?
Exactly that, and as well as, provincial governments are also, involved in putting money to work. So all of these things, as well as some supports for industries that are facing those very onerous tariffs. to the extent that those industries are having some support, it just prevents a real downward push on those industries, and that it doesn't ripple out into the rest of the economy.
So that's kind of the look from, say, 10,000 feet. But how does that translate into everyday lives and every household financial situation?
Well, when we're thinking about that, as we've already spoken about, we do have some, I wouldn't say relief, but certainly less pressure on household balance sheets from these mortgage renewals. We think inflation will remain around 2%. So it means that prices are going to go up by 2%, so not 8%, 2%, still going to move up. So that could have some strain for some households. Now, on the labor market, I mean, certainly we have seen some softening in terms of the labor market. And what companies are saying is they're saying, well, I'm not really looking to slash my workforce, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily looking to add. So in the near term, I think when we're looking at the household side, we're going to continue to see some nervousness. We're not seeing a huge amount of growth in terms of the labor market. And so to that end, it will keep, I think, consumers more cautious.
So
Sorry,
I just curious now if that you think that means that people will be more apt to hang on to their jobs or less movement perhaps within the market.
Yes, exactly. It's not that we're anticipating huge layoffs across Canada. That really isn't what we're hearing about, what's seeing. I mean, certain sectors, of course, certain industries are under significant pressure. But by and large, we think the labor market, it's softer. When we look at how many jobs are vacant per unemployed worker, they have come down significantly. So not seeing a lot of hiring activity, but at the same time, not looking wholesale job losses either.
Don, we'll have to leave it there. It's an interesting report. People can see it on our website through the link that we're putting up. And I want to thank you for your time as always. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. Thanks so much.
We'll take a break. We'll be back with more of your newscast in 2 minutes.
The opinions expressed in this segment are solely those of the commentator. They do not purport to reflect the opinions or views of this station, CTV News, Bell Media, or its employees.
Tonight in Murphy's Logic, Steve has some thoughts on an important anniversary year for our neighbors to the south and what lessons can be learned from America's founding fathers.
2026 is a year of significant anniversaries for the United States of America. Most obviously, this coming 4th of July marks the 250th anniversary, or the semi-quincentennial, of the Declaration of Independence. But 250 years ago this week, on the 10th of January, 1776, in an influential pamphlet entitled Common Sense, Founding Father Thomas Paine advocated for establishment of a new nation in which the law is king. The Declaration of Independence was adopted 6 months later. It was the start of what is now held up as the world's oldest, continuous, modern, constitutional democracy. Regrettably, that claim, that title, seems less credible than it was even a year ago. Donald Trump's systematic consolidation of power, aided and abetted, if not encouraged, by a supplicant Congress and overly sympathetic courts, has recreated some of the very conditions against which the 13 colonies rebelled 2.5 centuries ago. This is precisely what those founding fathers feared might happen. The same Thomas Paine warned that, and I quote, "Those who look upon themselves born to reign and others to obey soon grow insolent, and that when they succeed to government, they are frequently the most ignorant and unfit." No less than George Washington foresaw the tendency of those entrusted with its administration to consolidate the powers and thus to create, in his words, whatever the form of government, a real despotism. 2026 is also a midterm election year in America. As our neighbors prepare to vote and to celebrate this year, they would do well to ask themselves whether they're really willing to see their great nation return to the sort of tyranny that it was created to end. I'm Steve Murphy.
And Steve will return. To health headlines now, and Novo Nordisk Canada might compete with generic versions of its Ozempic and Wegovy drugs. It could introduce renamed lower-priced copies of the weight loss medications. CTV's Amanda Debison has more on the Lifeline.
Novo Nordisk Canada is considering competing with generic versions of its Ozempic and Wegovy drugs by introducing lower-priced versions of the medications.
Health Canada approved the company's submissions on December 22nd. Experts say the generic drugs are unlikely to be approved for at least a few months. The agency says evaluating the drugs is a complex process because Novo Nordisk's products were developed using biological means, while the generic versions are made using chemical means. Common preservatives used to keep food safe and extend shelf life may be linked to a higher risk of several cancers and type 2 diabetes. That's according to 2 new studies from France. The cancer study closely examined the impact of 58 preservatives on more than 100,000 people who were free of cancer in 2009 and were followed for up to 14 years. The other study examined the role of preservatives and the potential risk of type 2 diabetes in more than 100,000 people who did not have the disease at the start of the study. Finally, gadgets promoting a wide array of health benefits are now on display at the annual CES trade show in Las Vegas. Artificial intelligence is the latest trend in healthcare technology, and companies are showing off AI products designed to improve health, track hormones, and increase accessibility to medical information. But health and tech experts warn about gadgets' effectiveness and urge consumers to know where their data is going. With Health and Medical News, I'm Amanda Debison for the Lifeline.
Entertainment now, Katie Kelly. Hi.
Hello.
Tonight, a Newfoundlander musician lives in the Maritimes now. No stranger to this program or to you and I.
Yes, he says hi, by the way.
Does he? Okay. or a lot of fans out there.
That's right. Corey Tetford continues to connect with audiences decades into a life in music.
Let the rain come down.
For decades, Corey Tetford has been a constant on the Atlantic Canadian music scene. Many people first got to know him as part of the band Crush, before going on to carve out a career that's kept him busy ever since, as a songwriter, producer, engineer, and collaborator.
2. I think I chalk it up to stubbornness, basically. I don't know. I just, I love to work. I love music, and I love the people that I get to hang out with.
Over the years, Tetford has become and worked alongside some of the country's most respected artists, all while building a reputation as one of the region's most dependable and versatile musicians.
Well, my day job is I play guitar with Alan Doyle, so he keeps me on my toes. A lot more producing. I produce records and mix records for people out of my studio. And I also got to do my own tour. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. So, and you know, producing lots of records. It's a life of music. I'm one of the lucky ones, I think.
And clearly, Atlantic Canada continues to show up for him.
This is my favorite room to play in the country, and likely the world.
This month, Tetford is playing 3 sold-out shows at the Carlton.
It is quite an honor to live a life of music, because it's difficult. It can be. But it also gives me anyways, an immense sense of purpose. And I do not take that for granted.
Fans keep coming back not just for the music, but for the stories, humor, and intimacy that comes with a Corey Tetford show.
Well, actually, it's going to be myself, Chris McFarlane, and Ron Hines, but it's going to be a very stripped-down version. Different takes on some of my songs, some songs I've been singing for years, some piano, acoustic, electric, bunch of stuff.
So whether you've followed his career since the early days or you're just discovering him now, these sold-out shows speak for themselves.
I would say I am grateful. Thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart.
He's got some shows coming up.
Yes, yes. So 3 Carlton shows, as mentioned, sold out, which good for him. Good for him. He's amazing. But he will return to the Carlton as a special guest for Margaret Champion, who he's also done a lot of producing for. That's happening February 8th. So if you do want to see him at the Carlton, that is another chance to see him as a special guest.
I have a feeling you could be interviewing another Tedford sooner than later.
It's possible. Who knows?
Yeah, he's got a son.
He's got a son. Yeah, he said he's just dabbling in some production.
Sure.
You know, just starting out, but who knows? Maybe. Yeah, he said he's also really good at, he was working on his car today, so who knows? Okay. Could go either way.
Could go either way. We've got a contest.
Yes, yes. CTV wants to send you to the 2026 IIHF U18 Women's World Championship. Canada's national women's under-18 team will defend their World Championship title on home soil in Member 2 in Sydney, Nova Scotia from January 10th to 18th. One lucky viewer will win a pair of tickets to the bronze and gold medal games on January 18th, plus a signed Team Canada jersey. To enter, scan the QR code on your screen, or you can head to ctvatlantic.ca and follow the contest prompts. The contest is open until 6 o'clock Saturday. Enter for your chance to cheer on Team Canada. That is it.
All right.
Good luck.
Lots of hockey. It's been lots of hockey. Thank you very much. We'll be back with the business report after this.
Mornings with Aaron and Peter. Passport to Paradise is returning to Move 100, and tomorrow is the big announcement.
That's when we tell you where you're going in the Caribbean, and we start giving away trips next Friday.
On the markets, the Dow closed the day up 270 points, and Canadian exports to the U.S. fell in October to the lowest level ever recorded when you exclude the pandemic. BNN Bloomberg's Marla Fernandez has the details.
Canada's overall trade balance went from a surplus in September to a deficit in October. Statistics Canada puts the deficit at $583 million, with Canadians importing more computers, smartphones, and other electronics in October. And that offset gains in unwrought gold Canada exported to countries, excluding the U.S. The trading partners we exported the most to, the UK and the U.S. Here are the closing numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar is up to 72.14. West Texas Intermediate is up $1.77 to 57.76. Western Canadian Select is down $1.62 to 41.43. And the TSX gained back 243 points today, ending the day at 32,378. Those are your business headlines. I'm Marella Fernandez.
And Galen Mitchell is on the weather deck with one more look at tomorrow.
Yeah, a calm but chilly evening out here in the north end of Halifax. Let's take a look at a viewer picture for tonight. And this is a beautiful shot coming in from Barry Burgess. It was sent in from the Dalhousie Crossing area in Nova Scotia. A little cross-country skiing, a few snowflakes falling. This was from this past weekend. Dalhousie Crossing for tomorrow, mix of sun and cloud, and high temperature coming up to near 3 degrees. Day planner for tomorrow, start of the day around the Maritimes, partly cloudy conditions, and morning temperatures. It'll be a few to several degrees below the freezing mark. For Friday afternoon, a mix of sun and cloud around the Maritimes, with high temperatures coming up in the range of around -1 to +3 in a southwest wind. It'll be sustained 10 to 20 kilometers per hour. Let's find out what's ahead on your Morning Atlantic.
Friday on your Morning Atlantic, ice time. The IIHF U18 Women's World Hockey Championship is coming to our region, bringing the best young female players from all over the world. The hype about hockey, Friday on your Morning Atlantic on CTV2 and Crave.
And finally for us tonight, NASA is mulling over a rare early return of its crew from the International Space Station. It's because of an unspecified medical issue involving one of the astronauts. A spacewalk planned for today had to be canceled. A NASA official says that the astronaut with the medical issue is in stable condition. Astronauts typically see 6 to 8 month rotations on the space station, with access to basic medical equipment and medication for some types of emergencies. The 4-person crew includes 2 Americans, a Japanese astronaut and a Russian cosmonaut. That's our look at the day here at home. Bruce Frisco is in this chair at 11:30, and the website has your updates. I'm Todd Battis. Hope to see you right back here for your Friday edition of the newscast. Have a good night.
CTV News, the Maritime's #1 newscast. Watch live on Crave.